Okay, trendsetters, I'm Anthony O'Flynn and this is a energy forecast for the year 2025. Big shout going out to Pope Gregory for the inspirational Gregorian calendar, which effectively disconnects all the humans from the natural cycles of time, places it in this artificial way of looking at time, which is just another manifestation of the inverted reality we live in. But as many of us celebrate the new year, it's always time to think about what has passed and what will come. So as you know, I'm giving a tagline to each year. 2023 was the year of the counter move. 2024 was the year of convergence. And this phenomenon in this colossal paradigm shift that is occurring it doesn't end at the end of the year. They're like layers of a cake, basically, building on each other, as the counter move was basically the catalyst in the collective mind, was basically because of the pandemic and the magic potion. And then 2024, the year of convergence, where many of these political, economic, social issues started to converge on each other, which is having like this massive expansion in the collective mind that there is this impending need for change, impending need for the end of the way we're doing things, and a realization that all is not well, which is not a laughing matter, but basically just the realization in itself is the year of convergence, which will continue this year. In fact, in 2025, it will be the convergence on steroids. So in many ways, this phenomenon is actually just beginning. And much of the challenges that we're facing are by design. They're not some random occurring events. They're basically because of the structure of the world economy, the global economy, different policies of corporations, NGOs, governments, and so on. But 2025 is the year of the point of no return. So this year will be the year of the point of no return, which means, like, all the birds are getting excited. There's just been a brown snake seen on the property, just a few meters from the house earlier, actually. And this is basically the fact that, or recognition of the fact in the collective, not by everybody, mind you, but the collective itself, that we are experiencing something that cannot be labeled by the collective at this point. It cannot be understood properly, but there is this realization that we are at the point of no return, that we are in systemic failure, that the institutions are collapsing, that we are facing insurmountable problems, and we have to simply go forward. Like, there's no turning back, in the sense that we need to reform these institutions, these ways of doing things, of organizing collective resources, many different aspects of the building blocks of society, but we actually need to pave a way forward. So this has a little bit of the same theme as the Vikings of burning the boats, that there's literally no turning back. Now, not everyone will be on board for that, but by the end of this year, we will be facing such great systemic problems that they will require genuine solutions. And this is really where we've come to, this bridge where we can look over our shoulder and think if we can retreat back to the other side, or look ahead to cross the bridge to complete this journey. And 2025 is by no means the end of the journey, but it's a recognition that there is no turning back. We're at the point of no return. And this point of no return is also at the spiritual dimension. It's in regard to our belief systems, our values, our worldview, our relationships, and everything. This splitting in consciousness is going to become very real this year. For many, even though already for many, it's very apparent that many friends, families, colleagues, partners, whatever it is, are just not on the same page as us, that we are basically would be regarded as growing apart, or there's not a connection anymore, and so on. There is no point resisting this. This is what the point of no return is. And so for that reason, you need to be very conscious of who you have in your circle, who you are investing in your friendships, your relationships, and so on, because everybody needs a tribe to go through what we're going through. And this is important for our well-being and for supporting others, and also being supported at the same time. So there's no time anymore to nurture toxic relationships and so on. That is really going by the wayside. So this point of no return obviously means that one of the effects of this is that the pace of events is going to accelerate dramatically this year. This is not just a manifestation of Pluto in Aquarius, but it's a manifestation of the cosmic game accelerating, that there is now an urgency on this planet to embrace this paradigm shift. And it doesn't mean we need to come now with complete solutions, with everything worked out, but to acknowledge, this is the recognition basically, that acknowledge that these systems are broken, that our leaders are corrupt, that our leaders are not serving our interests, that our money is being wasted, that we pay in tax money and so on, and to find our voice and contribute to positive change. And this will be one of the biggest challenges of the awakening community, which has a tendency to really project much of the negativity into the collective of what's going in the world without offering any solutions, or actually focusing on our own inner work, our own inner growth. So therefore the ills of the world, the anger, the fear, the resentment and so on, simply become a vehicle for our own projection, our own interior experience that we are perhaps unconscious of, which is a feature of the awakening community. It's not in everyone, and it's not black and white, it's in degrees. And that's another one of the shifts that will occur in 2025, is this idea of black and white thinking, that this leader or this idea or this belief system is all good or all bad. There'll be lots of examples of that. Obviously, what I'm talking about here is people like the phenomenon of Donald Trump, which I'll get to in a minute. So this means that basically we will need to genuinely invest in our mental health, in the spiritual path, and you'll see that people start to take this more seriously, doing more inner work, particularly people who are on the journey of awakening, who are in the awakening community, whose interest may have so far been limited to some form of political activism, or, on social media or whatever it is, what people are doing, but now it will be more broadly into the themes of personal development, of inner growth and so on. And this will transpire into greater uptake of meditation, yoga, tantra yoga, Buddhism, Tai Chi, and of course many other practices, mindfulness, and practices that may appear more generic without a tradition behind it, which can be good and can also be very problematic. And that will be one of the biggest challenges for people who are new to the spiritual path, is to really not go down the path of quasi-spirituality or new age spirituality, or embracing modalities that have no genuine heritage or lineage, or are not authentic and are not, more generally, just not giving results. And so for this reason, there really does need to be a questioning of the path that you're on, and be malleable to change that, and also to have the discernment, if it's a good path, to really stay with it, to practice consistently, to practice with enthusiasm, to practice with passion, and to just maintain that consistency and have a deeper place for that in your life. And that will be a reflection of the many mental health challenges that people are undergoing. And this is not really supported by Gemini and Jupiter. Jupiter and Gemini would be a better way of phrasing that. But this will end later on in the year. So there will be a pouring out of mental health challenges. And also part of this will also be the ongoing theme of the Jesus revival, which is pretty big in parts of the world, although Australia is perhaps a Christian country, or at least regarded as one, or was perhaps. More broadly, this is really the embracing of the Christ consciousness, which is an effect of the path of Christianity, or it should be at least. which is more actually hitting the actual essence of what the transformation required is. Because when we talk about consciousness, it's beyond a spiritual path, it's beyond a religion, it's beyond a lineage, it's beyond a deity. It's basically your embodiment of this form of consciousness, your own personal resonance with a certain frequency of energy or frequency of consciousness. And so the Christ consciousness could be considered to be universal, regardless of people's religions or belief systems, because it's basically like all paths leading to the top of the mountain. It's just a separate path. I won't go into that further, but it's important to take that into account, that this awakening that really needs to be embodied is a consciousness, and whatever label you give to it is secondary to how you perceive reality and how reality perceives you, in terms of how you connect to the universe and how the universe connects to you. Because we are all having the invitation now to integrate these higher frequencies that are coming onto the planet, that are supporting our awakening, and we have to be open to receive. This is the biggest thing of all. And unfortunately, there's a huge percentage of the collective that are in a state of grogginess or inertia or inertness or dullness or darkness, that actually unconsciously resist the light. And this is going to be one of the biggest phenomena you're going to start to see going to 2025 and beyond, is this idea of embracing the light. And it doesn't, I know that might have Christian overtones. I don't really see that personally in that way at all. But the light, in the essence of everything that is good, that is pure, that is harmonious, that is elevated, that is of the supreme nature of reality. So this means that at the lower levels of the awakening, there will be this dichotomy of this split in consciousness between people embracing the light in terms of truth or the truth, or whatever is suppressed in terms of all the basic political, social, economic issues that we're facing, and those who are resisting it. Because the truth is the light, actually, and to avoid the truth, to shun the truth, to deny the truth, is to deny the light. And it's to deny the light in yourself that we all have. And it is perhaps in the times that we're going through the greatest act of self-sabotage of all, because somebody who is not wanting to be open to the truth is in essence completely connecting to the inverted reality, where everything is distorted, everything is inverted, where the education system is distorted, the medical system is inverted, the financial system is a system of oppression. It's this whole Orwellian thing that war is peace, that everything is the opposite of what they say. And that's a good rule of thumb going into 2025, is that if you're seeing something on the media, it's probably 100%, 180 degree the opposite of what you should actually believe, and so on. Of course, that's not true for everything, but there is this continual now decline of the mainstream media. This is actually pretty much a crisis for some of the various news outlets and so on, that people are really turning away from the traditional legacy media and now embracing the alternative media. This has got serious problems for the actual awakening, which I've seen. This really started over the pandemic, but now it's actually hitting a level where, really summed up in the phrase by Vladimir Lenin, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. And you really need to think about that statement for quite a while, because that's exactly what's happening with the so-called alternative mainstream media, that the powers that be have planned for this and are adapting to the changing times. And really all that it's designed to do is modify your belief systems, indoctrinate your worldview, and it's basically creating groupthink in another avenue or another method. And so the biggest error people make with this evaluation of these so-called leaders in the podcasts and in the alternative media is that people claim, what about when they had this person? What about when they talked about this topic? And what about when... And it's like, yeah, exactly. This thing is very, very sophisticated, and it's very complex to unravel the agenda. And this is what this point I was making earlier. Black and white thinking will not help you discover your essence of truth in 2025 by focusing on the mainstream really big influences in the alternative media space. And so the questions you need to start asking are what guests are they not having on their podcasts? What topics are they not talking about? What themes are taboo for these so-called leaders? And there are about 10 or 20 ones, which I won't go into now, which are dead giveaways that they are controlled. And at the very least, gatekeepers. And there's a difference between being controlled and being a gatekeeper, but the effect is the same. In essence, there is a block or there is a filtering out of the truth. But the reason why I put the spiritual things first, because I usually put them last in my videos, is that this year it is the most important thing you can do, and it will be the same every year. I'll say this as we go through the shift, is that you need to connect with the essence of your being. You need to connect with your soul. You need to connect with the stillness. And I will be offering free events throughout the course of the year. You can sign up to the website paradigmshift.com.au to keep up to date with that. And also I'll be offering a workshop on the 22nd of February, the first one for the year, at my home here on the Sunshine Coast, Navigating the Shift, which will have various themes for that. You can look at holisticyoga.net to find out all about the information there. It's a one-day workshop here on the Sunshine Coast. Because this is the most important thing, actually, is to connect with the essence of your being, to go through this awakening of the soul, because it needs to be the flame that guides the way, that lights the way, that gives us the strength, the endurance, the resilience, the inner guidance, the inner support to help us through these times. Because this year of 2025, nothing can stop what is occurring on this planet. There is no force. They may be able to sort of delay some things or make it appear that this process is being delayed or slowed down or not happening at all. But there's nothing that can be done to stop this. This is a galactic phenomenon, and we are simply here to witness what is occurring, participate and contribute positively. And that is something that is another theme, obviously, for this year. It's fairly generic, obviously, but we need to consider, how are we contributing positively to the overall global shift? How are we supporting the awakening? What is our part? It doesn't need to be so amazing, having this massive impact or something. The most important thing is the intention itself. Like, are we in a place where we're being more selfless, more giving, more altruistic and so on? Or are we just receiving all the time? And this is going to be something where, at the beginning, I said we need to embody these frequencies, it's consciousness, because our way of being is ultimately just a reflection of our life, is a reflection of this, where we connect to the different frequencies of the universe. And this is going to be a work in progress for all of us, and it's an opportunity. And you can either look at the awakening, as many people are in the awakening community, as form of punishment, as a form of suffering, particularly with the economic fallout of the economic crisis and so on, or you can look at it as an opportunity for radical awakening, radical transformation. And this is very important to think about, because anything that's coming our way is ultimately serving our highest good. But if we don't have that mindset around that, then it just looks like everything is a form of punishment or a limitation, or I don't get to fulfill my dreams and wishes and hopes and so on. Well, most people don't. And too often people are looking at the material plane only and not seeing the suffering that goes on with people at are often very wealthy and so on, that they're very miserable inside. They're very unhappy. They're very lonely. They're very, they don't have any purpose. They don't have any joy. I mean, there's just so many ways that they suffer that are invisible to most people. But when you have eyes to see, you can see this. So we're going through this 2025. And as I said, the intensity of events this year is going to shock some people. We're already gone from this drone op in the US now to this fog that's appearing, some sort of bizarre fog that some people are claiming is appearing in half of the states in the US. There's really not a lot of detail about this, except that some people are claiming that it's man-made, but this is already in the first week of 2025. Maybe the drone operation has wound down a bit. A lot of people taking holidays over Christmas and New Year, so maybe they'll be back on the tools in the next week or two and it'll jack up again. Who knows what that is about? I was going to mention this later on, but the UFO, UAP phenomenon will increase this year, including unexplained phenomenon that is not necessarily UFO or ET related, that is more merging with the astral universe, different realities, that is basically just in the whole unexplained phenomenon that really we don't even have a handle on what that could even be yet. This is part of the awakening. It's part of the shift of consciousness, and it will be chaotic and not necessarily widespread, but some events will leave people scratching their head with no real genuine explanation as to what that could be. Perhaps the fog is that. I'm not sure. I'm not drawing any conclusions on that. But one thing is for sure, in 2025, expect the psyops to intensify radically. I mean, there will be all kinds of things going on to distract you, to take you out of your spiritual practice, to soak up your time on the loosh, to generate fear in the collective, to create division in the populace, in the collective, to create division in the awakening community. And this will be a big theme at 2025, including the financial situation, which is a whole topic in itself. I'm not sure how much to explain about that, but let me just start by going back to 2024. I said 2024 would be the year of precious metals. In Australian dollars, or the Pacific peso as we call it, it's hit a 5-year low today, the Australian dollar. Gold has gone up in 2024 38%, which is a massive return. It's actually not as high as what I thought it would be. And silver has gone up in 2024 34%. So that's a pretty big return. Investments considering 7 to 9% is considered to be a really solid return over a year. I mean, and that's only going to intensify and grow more in 2025. The gains will be bigger in 2025, at least in terms of fiat currency, which will be another major issue in 2025. BTC, I've also spoken about crypto previously, increased 136% in 2024. That's a massive gain for something that many people consider a Ponzi scheme, but now the market cap of BTC alone is 3 trillion Australian dollars. It's difficult to see that going to zero, or at least a crash that will not have a rebound at some point. None of what I'm saying here is financial advice. It's just me observing the patterns of these markets. Nothing that I'm making statements around. This is to be construed in any way as being financial advice whatsoever. And on that, the gains in some of the altcoins are spectacular. On 7,000% 2024, HBAR 227, XLM 206%. And we are now, as according to many, in the alt season. So expect the gains to be big, expect the losses to be big, expect many people making huge rookie errors in cryptocurrency, which will continue to occur. FOMOing in, buying at the top, selling at the bottom, completely losing a lot of money along the way. It's just par for the course. Many people don't know what they're doing. They don't understand that investing should be like watching paint dry. and it should not be like being in a casino, although I'm pretty sure most people who are in crypto understand that it is like being in a casino with spectacular gains. So that leads me on to the US economy. Obviously, many of these events are trying to distract people from the crisis that the US economy is in. I've spoken about this for years. I don't see any resolution to this at all. The US debt's now over $30 trillion. It cannot be paid back mathematically. In 2024, homelessness in the US went up 18%. And in 2024, almost 25 of Americans couldn't pay their full power bill at some point. That's how severe the crisis is over there. And whether we'll see hyperinflation of the US dollar or not, I don't know. Hyperinflation is when the inflation increases over 50% in a month, which is complete end of the currency. I mean, if that would even occur at a level of, like the Argentinians have had with 10% inflation for a month over the course of 1 or 2 years, that's disaster for the currency. Even places like Turkey had over 60% inflation at one point. So it's a shift of wealth to the 1%, and that's why some of these metrics of the economy are skewed. For example, 1% of the population of the US owns over 50% of shares in the stock market. So we saw the pandemic had a massive wealth transfer. That's what is occurring now, and people are struggling just to get by. There's no way out for the US economy as I see it now. And significantly, this is not just a phenomenon that occurred over Biden. If you look at the money printing that's taken place since the GFC, it went on steadily through Trump. If you look at the chart, it's been going on through him. So to blame this on one administration or the other is incorrect. It's the government as a whole. And this shows a failing of the two-party system. Obviously, we'll have a federal election here in Australia by May the latest. And I'll be making another video on the state of the Australian soul, because this is something I want to go into in detail to show what's happening in Australia, because I don't want this video to go for too long. And I'm glad actually I've stuck to the spiritual dimension of things the most, because it is the most important. And you can hear a lot of the financial information from other people, other channels, but it's still important to be informed of what's occurring. But the metric that concerns me the most with what I'm seeing here in Australia is that in the Queensland election that we had in 2024, if you look at how disastrous the Labor Party was for the standard of living and the overall governance of the state of Queensland during the Palachuk era, Miles as well, he was the Premier for 10 months, let's not forget about that. 75% of the populace or the voters went out and voted either Liberal or Labor in that population. And it tells me that metric indicates that we haven't learnt the lesson of this uni-party left-right phenomenon here in Australia. And that only way out, as far as the solution goes in the short term, is that this two-party, uniparty preferential voting system, it needs to be... We need either a new system, which cannot happen unless there are enough politicians in office in the first place willing to restructure it, which is the first step is to break this deadlock of this left-right paradigm, because it's not serving the interests of the people. And it's never been more obvious that these pathetic leaders we have here in Australia are serving globalist masters, and they're not serving the interests of the people at all. And this is becoming increasingly obvious and will continue in 2025. There's a whole range of topics around that, which I won't go into now. But one point I did want to make around the economy, that our standard of living is going so backwards, and the false light is that of Donald Trump. This is will be a very divisive opinion, but I'm sorry to say that people who are having this connection to the external saviour in the form of a politician, a leader, it's going to be extremely disappointing when the inauguration takes place and it's business as usual for the corporation of the US and for the basic running of the country. There are a whole lot of reasons behind this, but going back into the whole cryptocurrency space, that in my view, one of the key aspects of the Trump administration will be overseeing and presiding over the bankruptcy of the US. And that is inevitable in terms of the US dollar and all of the fallout that that will generate around the world in terms of instability of currency and contagion in the various markets and the panic that will occur, panic selling. And it's obvious what's going on with the central banks are buying precious metals at record levels. You would also have to be extremely naive to believe that the saving path is to buy Bitcoin. There's only 21 million Bitcoin ever to be mined. There's just under 20 million being mined at the moment. So it's a real limit, which is part of the appeal of Bitcoin. It can't be hyper-inflated away. But to think that this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder of Bitcoin, this mythical figure in the social media age, no one knows who he is. And this is presiding over a market cap of 3 trillion Australian dollars. It's ridiculous to think that this is some guy who's just invented this in his bedroom and then vanished. I mean, that's an extremely naive view. And of course I could be wrong about this, but show me who this guy is and show me the verification that this person actually exists as an individual and what were their intentions and so on. Because Bitcoin is such a huge phenomenon that's now flipped silver as far as the biggest assets in the world. So back to what I'm saying is that this will be the introduction of digital currency under the Trump administration, and this will be the birthing of the digital ID, which we've already seen the foundations of that starting to be built in Australia. Of course, the misinformation bill was rejected here in Australia, and the CBDC and everything around that. And this is why these ISO coins are doing so well in the crypto space. And so this idea of digital currency is a way out. It's the way out of now moving from fiat currency, which is not backed by anything. If you don't know this, that the US dollar went off the gold standard in 1971 under Nixon. Therefore, it's not backed by gold anymore. It hasn't been backed for gold for over 50 years. And then you think, well, okay, well, there's still plenty of gold there in Fort Knox. Well, is there? Because Fort Knox hasn't been audited since the 50s. And so the argument that Bitcoin isn't backed by anything or has no intrinsic value, yeah, there's a valid argument. But fiat currency also it's not backed by anything either. And so this is the transition from fiat currency, paper currency, how you want to phrase it, to digital currency.